Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, the Versace Stoner, with another episode of VSW. Thank you. Tonight, we are talking WrestleMania 8 from the Hoosier Dome in Indianapolis, Indiana. And this was great. April 5th, 1992, with 62,167 in attendance. Double main event. What a spectacular pay-per-view. The build-up was great. You had Flair entering the WWE as the real world champion for a while, showing off his flashy WCW belt. You had him winning the WWE Championship prior at Royal Rumble when it was vacant. He won that in the Royal Rumble by Justice eliminating Hogan. Well, he eliminated Hogan. Hogan pulled Justice down. Flair capitalized and won the belt. What a victory that was. And then this started on with that as him as champion. Well, he started beefing with the Macho Man, and he had photos of him and Miss Elizabeth, and they did a whole promo with it. Hogan would go on to face Sid Justice, and then they would go on to do that main event. It was very interesting as Hogan wasn't part of the title. Randy Savage, however, was. And this was very good. This was good for the WWE at the time. This was good for wrestling, I think. As you know, Hogan was starting to move out of the main picture. All the superstars were starting to get noticed. And this is what took place here in 92. So let's get down to the card. It was a very good card, in my opinion. You know, maybe not as big as the other Manias on some of the matches, maybe not as many matches, but it was a good card. You had Shawn Michaels with Sensational Sherry defeating El Matador, Tito Santana. You know, now you had HBK all alone, singles competition, really starting to shine, going after his IC title runs and so forth, and making a name for himself. He had Sensational Sherry on his side as a manager, and that was great for him. You know, he needed the female. It's a good match. You know, Tito Santana always there for WrestleMania, always, ready to perform. Great match. You had The Undertaker with Paul Bearer defeating Jake the Snake Roberts. This was a great matchup too. You know, two of the darkest at the time. Jake the Snake with his Snake, and Undertaker just making a dominant presence and continuing his victorious streak, which was become legendary in WWE history. Then you had the Native American Tatanka defeating the model Rick Martel, continuing his undefeated streak as well. And, the Native American Tatanka would be on to become a legend, too, in the WWE. Rick the Model already was, tag team superstar, individual superstar. Just, he's been in a bunch of WrestleManias. Great athlete. We talked a little bit about him on the last episode covering WrestleMania 7. So, but he really had Tatanka out, making a name for himself in the WWE. And you didn't really have, many Native American wrestling gimmicks at the time. Besides that, you only had Chief Jay Strongbow, and a few others maybe. So Tatanka was fresh face for this. And he really got the crowd going. Later he would turn on a lot of people too, but that was that would be later on. And it would just add another layer into his wrestling career. Tatanka's one of my favorite stars. I talk to him sometimes on the Twitter. And he's very responsive to fans, and he's just a really good. Seems like a really good person. I have a lot of memories of watching him as a kid. Really liking it. Him when he made his debut into the WWE. You had Owen Hart defeating Skinner. Owen Hart starting to take off. The Rocket. He was tagged up with Jim the Anvil for a while, and then he was doing singles competition. Really breaking out of that Blue Blazer gimmick. This would be kind of the beginning where he would start to, shine solo. Unfortunately, that his career would be cut short with tragedy. But, he was a very bright star in the WWE universe. He will never be forgotten. And he had a great match taking the victory against Skinner. And, Skinner was a great wrestler as well. Had kind of a funny gimmick from, Alligator Hunter, Crocodile Hunter, whatever he was. But, this was the era we were in. We were getting into the new generation. Things were a little bit, funny, goofy, cartoonish. In the coming years, we would see even more cartoonish-like characters, more funny skits, and more just fun introduced into the WWE universe. You also had Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Sergeant Slaughter, Virgil, and the Big Boss Man defeating the Mountie, Repo Man, and the Nasty Boys, Brian Knobbs and Jerry Sags with Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. Great, 8-man tag here. And you had Slaughter now becoming a face again, as, he was head heel last year at Mania. This year it's a little bit different. You have some great talent in there. Hacksaw, Sergeant Slaughter, Virgil, Virgil breaking free from the $1 Million Man, doing his single thing. Didn't really amount to much, but, he gave it his all. Big Boss Man, he would keep going on and on, continuing through the Attitude Era. Mountie is, great athlete. Like I said, we talked about him in the last one. Repo Man, Smash from Demolition, now doing this solo thing as the Repo Man. Nasty Boys, great tag team. This was a great 8-man. Something interesting, something fun for the WrestleMania crowd. These matches, like I said, weren't the best card in all the Manias, but they definitely, they had good build-up. They had some, good storyline to it. And that's what was kind of important, at the time. Then you had one of the greatest Intercontinental Championship matches ever. Bret the Hitman Hart defeating Rowdy Piper to become the new IC champion. Great match, family, their friends, or whatever they are. They were talking, the promos were great. And, what a great up match. Rowdy Piper had defeated the Mountie to become the IC champion, and Bret Hart had taken it back from Rowdy Piper. And, it was a classic match. These two great wrestlers. Now Bret Hart really, his solo career, taking off full effect. And the next year, he would be the face of the company. Pretty much. So, a lot rode on him as far as becoming champion and how he would present himself and where he would go from here. And Roddy Piper's a classic wrestler. Classic. Been WrestleMania 1. You can't take that away. So this was just a great matchup for the IC belt. When the IC belt actually meant something. I don't believe it means much today. That's just my opinion. Don't cancel me or anything. I don't think the prestige is there that it once was. People didn't, get the IC belt to move on to the next round. Today, everybody's just everywhere. There's no organization. You had the Tag Team Championship, Natural Disasters, Earthquake, and Typhoon defeating Money Inc., $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and IRS, Erwin R. Schweister with the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. What a great matchup. The Natural Disasters, great tag team. Money Inc., great tag team. 4 legends in the ring at the same time. IRS, one of the greatest wrestlers to, not, really didn't really, get a lot of main event status. Just, he did make it far with tag teams and such, but he would go on to give birth to some of the greatest wrestlers. Look at Bray Wyatt. Look at Bo Dallas. That's all I can say. Nacho Zazas, Earthquake, and Typhoon. What a tag team they were. This was the age of big men when big men wrestled and could move. These guys could move. Okay, these guys could move. You had your second main event. Hulk Hogan defeating Sid Justice with Harvey Whipping by DQ. You saw a return of Ultimate Warrior for a minute. Papa Shango. The match just was insane. So you had a lot going on there. Okay, in the main event. It was in the first main event. Now, as we get ready for our second main event, I just want to say, that first one, I think it was like the first time Hogan wasn't in it for the belt. He wasn't champion. He wasn't in it for the belt. And it wasn't like WrestleMania 4 where he faced Andre the Giant. Sid Justice, though, was a good opponent for him. I just think, he was leaving. He didn't want a title reign. They didn't want him to have a title reign. And just, that's just the way it fell. We should have seen maybe Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair. Champion versus champion at some point. It didn't happen then. As much as everybody wanted it to. In the main event, the Macho Man Randy Savage with Miss Elizabeth would go on to defeat the Nature Boy Ric Flair and become the new WWE champion. And the Macho Man was champion again now. Not since WrestleMania 5 would he have had he had been champion. And this was a good reign for Macho Man, This was good for him. Great match with him and Flair. Like I said, the story building up to it was great. Storyline with Elizabeth and Flair, and their relationship that they might have had, and the photos and all this going on, really, 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 it made the match the main event. And I think that's why they went with it. Again, that was WrestleMania 8. Next up, WrestleMania 9. The big one at Caesar's Palace. Thank you, everybody, for listening. It's been great. I'm your host, the Versace Stoner. Versace out.